special episode of Video Game, the Movie, the Podcast. I'm your host, Dan.
And I'm Maxie.
And this month we're talking about one of the greatest video game adaptations of all time, Goldeneye.
This was a pretty fun romp. Kind of weird tonally. I'm gonna get into my thoughts on that later, but it was enjoyable.
Yeah, it's this very interesting, like, post-Soviet spy drama. As we all know, it is based on the classic N64 video game GoldenEye 007, part of the 007 series, although most international players aren't really aware of it because the first two GoldenEye games were released on the Amiga and ZX Spectrum.
I see. Oh, is that why they tried to get that ZX Spectrum emulator into the N64? Because I was reading about that earlier.
Oh, yeah. There was, like, a whole, like, movement about it. I mean, eventually they would, like, re-release it, and they'd include the ports of the old games, but no one really plays them. I mean, some people do. It's just kind of an obscurity compared to the real piece de resistance. I feel like this month we can just get right into it.
Oh, you don't want to talk about the video games we've been playing? Because I've been in the gacha mines.
Boy.
They got me again.
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing Limbus Company, and also, I guess Steam is doing sales just like 6 times a year or some shit at this point. But long story short, Civ 6 was on sale for like 95% off, so I finally picked that up. Having a good time with that.
Yeah, I do find it interesting just how, like, how big Steam sales have sort of devalued over the years. Not like that they're not good deals, just like how frequently they're happening and, like, there's less of a hype machine around them. I think my pet theory is, like, the early days of the Steam summer sales were in part super hyped up because of the 2008 economic crisis. Like, getting, like, all these games at such a good deal is, like, a rarity, considering, like, you know, like, things were it was harder to, like, get a hold of stuff, and, you know, I don't know if I'm explaining myself well, but...
No, I think I get what you mean, and now I feel like it's more just a feature of the platform, and kind of built in, try and push software through.
Yeah.
I think it's for the best, though. Like, I was getting some serious fatigue with the whole summer sale thing after a while. So now I'm just like, oh, that game I wanted is on sale. I'll pick that up, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think that's honestly less of a pain in the ass than being like, okay, so there's the Steam summer sale event, and I can buy games to get points in the event, but I can also get points in the event by doing a mini game, and if I get enough points, I can exchange that for Steam Store credit.
Yeah.
Fuck all that shit.
Yeah.
All the social media, like the achievements, the emoticons, the stickers, which I guess they have now, all that shit, nothing to me.
Yeah.
Steam is the app I open up, and there are my games in there, and I double-click a game, and then I play the game.
Yeah, I would say the last one I was really, like, interested in was, like, I think they did, like, a spring cleaning stuff for a year or two, and that was just like, hey, go check out your backlog. And, you know, it is good to like, check out my backlog and, like, remember what the first game I ever bought on this platform was. Which was, by the way, Braid. Anyway.
Oh, I've heard that game's really good, as long as you don't run out of the get back in time potion.
Yeah. It's, you know, like, people who drink get drunk, people who smoke get high, and, like, Braid is on a whole nother level. As far as, like, games I've been playing, let me think. There's been 2. I've been playing Like a Dragon Ishin, which is really, really good. It is a game that was developed by Ryuga Gotoku Studios, like, before they developed Yakuza 0, and, like, originally it was only Japan exclusive, but in recent years they were like, well, you know, I think maybe Westerners will be able to, like, understand, like, all these extremely specific Japanese historical things. So we'll...
Or at least, like, roll with the punches.
Yeah. They ported it over. It's really good. It really like, I don't know. The side content is just really strong. Like, there's like some quests. There's like one where you like have to help out like a hikikomori. There's one where you like meet this like famous like Japanese writer that is anachronistic, but I don't care because the bit's good.
I just cannot imagine being a hikikomori in like feudal times, because what do you even do?
Right. I
like once every 3 months you can afford a book, and other than that you're just like sitting around, maybe writing poetry.
Yeah. There's some... I do love... Some of the anachronisms are really good. Like, you do get the karaoke. It's just like a bar where you sing. There's like... For whatever reason, there's just a Don Quixote in, like, late 19th century Japan. I will say, though... also, I love that the combat is, like... It's fun that... I do like that the combat styles are, like... you either get a sword or a gun, or a sword and a gun, or you can just punch people.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
I really love Wild Dancer. It looks really cool. It's... shit, what else was I gonna say? But yeah, that's, oh, right. There is one very silly thing that I keep running into, which is that because this is like a port of a game set in a very specific era of Japan, it's like Bakumatsu, which is like right at the end of like the sort of reign of the shogunate, and right before like the Meiji Restoration. There's like a little glossary of like terms you should know for like stuff in this time. And, like, if, like, they bring it up in a cutscene, in, like, a dialogue or something, you can, like, pause the game and it'll, like, show you. But it always just highlights things that become really obvious after, like, the first 30 minutes of playing. Like, oh, yes, Kyo, that is, like, what is modern-day Kyoto, or, Tosa, that's this area, that's the Koichi Prefecture. But... there is stuff that's just, I don't know, it's very silly. You can just, like, it feels a little repetitive after a while.
Yeah. No, I feel like that is the one problem with a lot of the, Like a Dragon games. They have great plots, the side content is a blast, but also, you can only beat up guys so many times before it's like, okay, I get the idea.
Yeah. Other thing I've been playing, Final Fantasy XIV. A friend of the show, Argyle, and I have been going through Shadowbringers patch content. I'm going to bring this specific thing up because it's extremely funny. So the other night we did the second Nier raid, and part of it is like right before like the true like actual boss of the level. There's this section where between the previous boss and that one, you have to like run down this hallway, and it's sort of like this bullet hell light thing where you have to, like, dodge lasers and stuff, and it gets increasingly complicated. And because this was a collaboration with Yoko Taro, Yoko Taro had an idea that could not get implemented in the final version, because Yoko Taro thought the best thing you could do is, if any of the 24 players in this raid fuck up this section even once, you should start over. But that could not be implemented because that's insane.
Yeah, a little bit.
Have
I told you about my idea for if I were ever to work on like a Dark Souls type of game, like a Soulsborne inspired thing, I would want to include just a really pain in the ass optional dungeon, just absolutely miserable on purpose. Actively make it bullshit and unfair and not in a fun way, and then don't have any reward at the end. No lore, no loot, nothing.
Yeah.
Just, okay, great job.
Oh man, that
completely deny catharsis.
That is. I'm honestly surprised if that's not already in a Souls game. That's incredible. What is that? It reminds me of something, but I can't think of it. So yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think that's it for like games I want to talk about. Let's get into this. So of course, Rareware made the video game GoldenEye 007 in 1997. Mm-hmm. This was released in 1999. It is an adaptation, and I gotta say, a really accurate adaptation.
I feel like a lot of the time, even the pretty faithful ones take liberties, but this thing is basically level for level.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Of course, this would spawn a lot of success. It was very popular. Of course, the video game, as we know, is the video game is famous for popularizing the concept of the headshot in first-person shooter type games.
Which is funny because I don't know if Bond shoots anybody in the head in this.
Yeah, it's like a big thing. An idea was, this should be stealth-based. We should implement mechanics where you can damage limbs or do more damage if you hit them in the head. Does not happen in the movie. I love that. I just think that's funny. I will note that the version I watched was a VHS rip that was on the Internet Archive, by the way. Visit the Internet Archive. It fucking kicks ass.
I strongly considered seeing the Internet Archive version, and then I was like, I'll just spend $3 and get the better picture quality. So there's not much to say about the VHS, but I do want to note that it does begin with an ad for a razor blade. The rest of it is normal VHS opening stuff. Here's some other videos we're releasing. But there is just an ad for a razor blade. I think it's chic. I just thought that was great. Is it a Bond themed ad? Is it a cool space age spy razor?
I mean, I guess the idea is this is aimed at adult men who mature things and James Bond. So they included an ad for a razor. I mean, I will say most James Bond fans, as I understand, are middle-aged British men, so that makes sense. But we get our opening sequence. It is the sort of prologue section of the game. We get this plane flying over a dam, and James Bond does a bungee jumping sequence.
I really like the shot when it's behind him and it sort of tilts down and you see the drop. Creates a great sense of vertigo, and there's no sound but the howl of wind through this canyon or whatever. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it rules. And he makes his way through the space. He's shooting guys.
He stealths around for a bit before he gets noticed and held at gunpoint in a side room. But then it turns out his attacker is actually 006, Alec Trevelyan, and they're on this mission together. Alec does murder the fuck out of a civilian.
He sure
does.
At
one point. He just shoots a scientist, and I don't know why.
Yeah, it's sort of a turn. Yeah, this game, the game and the movie's depiction of 006 is such a turn, given, in earlier games he was the co-op player. If you plugged in a second controller, you could play as him. But not in this one.
I mean, that's sort of that's what makes it such a such a twist when it turns out, and everybody knows this. Everybody knows anything about Goldeneye knows. Oh, Alec betrayed you. Like every fucking mentor who goes missing in a video game or whatever ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, for now they are on the same side. They are doing this mission. I'm pretty sure the Foley for Alec's gun is the exact same file as they use in the game, which is a nice touch.
Yeah, there is like a lot of like direct Foley from like the game. It's great.
So yeah, they go to like this chemical weapons facility's central storage room. They start sabotaging things, but they trip an alarm. James Bond is setting a bunch of like explosives while Alec tries to hold off the base's security detail. Eventually, he gets held hostage, and the guy in charge, Orumov, demands Bond surrender, and Alec tells him to finish the job. So Bond like lowers the timer on the explosives. They were set for 6 minutes; they're set for 3 now, and then. He fake surrenders. They shoot Alec anyway. He grabs Alec's automatic weapon, and then they go for like some Austin Powers type shit. He is hiding behind a cart full of gas canisters, and the security detail can't fire on him because they're worried about blowing everything up. So he's just like staying behind this cart. Peeking out the side and like shuffling across the room slowly but surely as like the cart is squeaking. At one point, one of the soldiers gets an itchy trigger finger. General Orumov kills him immediately. Then he just keeps doing the cart thing. And then he resolves this by activating a conveyor belt that leads outside and just kind of like leaping backwards onto it.
Yeah, It's very comical. Like, this is a very silly movie. Like,
yeah, and this is what I was talking about with the tone thing. Like, this movie seems almost uncertain of whether it wants to be a straight spy movie with like some joke moments or like a comedy or a parody or something. And I think I know why. So like 1997, like August 1997, I want to say, GoldenEye Nintendo 64 drops. Spring 1997, Austin Powers International Man of Mystery is released in theaters and is a modest box office success.
I mean, we all know Austin Powers. It's a great movie.
The classic. But, so my theory is, in between 1997 and 1999, when this movie comes out, Austin Powers, obviously it did much better on home release, and it eventually gets a sequel, also slated for 1999. So I feel like it puts the filmmakers in this unwinnable situation where they can't do just like a straight James Bond, a straight 007 type of adaptation, because if they do, it will seem silly next to Austin Powers.
Right.
But it's weird for them to go for a full parody too, because then it feels like they're trying to like bite Austin Powers. So I feel like they had these dueling impulses and neither really won. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's tricky. Yeah, I can understand why they wanted to like play with it a bit. Maybe Austin Powers is on the brain. They want to, like, capitalize off that just a little bit, So, I will, after he, like, escapes, he does this great sequence. This section, I gotta say, in the game, this section's fucking hard. He has to, like, bike out, and, like, he runs into, like, a plane that's taking off. He takes out, like, the crew. And then he, like, has to hijack it while, like, leaping off of this bike off a cliff. And then he's, like, pulling up to, like, so he can fly away safely. It's a fucking tricky sequence. And they really are able to, like, show, like, characterize that difficulty in this scene. It's really interesting. I love it. and the base explodes and he flies away, and we get our title sequence.
So there's two things about this title sequence that really strike me. The first is Albert R. Broccoli cannot possibly be a real man's name.
Oh my god.
The producer of this movie is credited as Albert R. Broccoli, and I looked at that and I was like, you're fucking with me.
Oh my god. Average British man.
But the second thing was, hey, did you know that the USSR isn't around anymore?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the late 1990s and the Cold War's over. Here's a bunch of images of, like, sickles falling through the sky and, like, crumbling statues of Lenin and shit. And it's very on the nose, and it's also very 90s in its use of CGI.
Yeah.
But I kind of love it. Like,
I do.
Partly in a straightforward way and partly in a kitsch way.
Yeah. They're playing with, the fact that, like, this is a post-Soviet spy drama. The big spy thing that everyone cared about is over now, so what do? We gotta reevaluate it. I will note, the way this movie does, like, handle it in practice outside of the scene, I feel like they could have done more with. I think they just... I think the way the movie just tends to depict it is, well, we can't say it's the USSR, so we'll just say it's Russia. Regular Russia.
I don't know, because I think the angle of, like, Trevelyan's motives and his relation with Ourumov, who, by all appearances, is, like, a Russia guy, even if he's out for himself. I think that's interesting ground, and I feel like going into this, I thought it was going to be, they're trying to start the Cold War again, like in The Man Who Knew Too Little, or whatever.
Right.
But not quite going for that, and instead playing with, the history of World War II and the Allied countries and so on. Yeah. I think that's a little more interesting, honestly.
Yeah.
It's doing its own thing. I would like it if it had explored things a bit more, but this is already on the longer side for one of these movies. It's like pushing 2 hours, and it probably would have bloated things a little bit.
So 9 years later, James Bond is very unsafely driving through the English countryside with a woman that we will not see after this scene, I think. Unless this is Moneypenny? I don't know.
No, it's not. She's like a psychiatrist assigned to analyze him, I think.
Oh, great. That's...
One thing I love about psychiatrists is how it's okay for them to make out with the people that they're analyzing.
Yes, famously.
And not a serious breach of professional conduct.
Yeah. It's something, alright. They do, like, a fun car chase with this, like, sexy lady in another car.
I don't know why. I don't know why they're racing.
Me neither.
It just kind of happens?
Yeah, hang on, let me just check something.
Also, can I just say, the music for this sequence is fucking crazy. Like,
it's some real penis music, I think.
It really is. It sounds like the tutorial music for, like, a Jet Set radio game.
That's great. It's okay. I did check. I did want to check, like, when the Fast and Furious came out. That's 2001. So disregard my looking stuff up. But yeah, they do a car chase set to some wild ass music, and then James Bond makes out with his psychiatrist, which is normal. There is also just this bit where I love this, like, gag of them having to, like, avoid hitting an entire, like, group of cyclists. I will note, when you play this section in the game, you do have to, like, make sure you don't hit them, or you get, like, an instant game over.
For real? That's such bullshit.
So they make out, and we get the we get James Bond like arriving to the next level of the game, Paris.
There's a French casino, and he's playing Baccarat with the sexy car lady. I know nothing about Baccarat. Nobody in America knows anything about Baccarat. The only context any of us have for Baccarat is that it's in Goldeneye and it's in Casino Royale.
Yeah. It's a real like it's just for all I care, they might as well just be playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Oh god, now I'm thinking of. I think Argyle did like a bit about that in one of our little like tournaments we run for Pot of Greed. But yeah, it's great. They're like very sensually playing Baccarat. This section, I'm glad they incorporated the Baccarat minigame in here somehow. This lady she rules. Her name is like Xenia Zergevia Ornatov.
It's Onatop.
Onatop.
Because every bad woman and some of the good women in a Bond story has to have a really unsubtle and stupid double entendre.
Like fucking Pussy Galore or what have you. So they like after like the match they like flirt for a while, and eventually they part ways. Like this guy like ushers her out, and Bond like we see Bond like just running through a mime show to like spy on her. Because of course, as we soon find out, she's like an agent for like a crime syndicate.
The Janos crime syndicate.
Yeah. She does. We do see her give this man who was with her the death nut.
So this is like her signature move is she fucks you, and then she like clenches her legs around your midsection real tight, and that makes it so you can't breathe and you die, I think?
Yeah, I guess I will say it would have been better. I understand it would have been harder to pull off in this sort of film, both like tonally and effects wise, but I do wish he like crushed their heads between her thighs. That would have kicked ass.
That's very true.
Yeah,
I like how M in the mission briefing she sends Bond is literally just like, "Hey, don't fuck her, please. For once, don't try and fuck the target." Yeah,
it's great. Then he does like the boat sneaking level. He has to, like, fight some dudes. He's got to, like...
Okay, to be clear, he fights one dude.
Yeah, he fights one dude.
There is one cabin boy there, and then he just, like, gets him.
Yeah, he's like the tutorial boss fight. And we find that Xenia is so she took, like, the guy's, like, ID card so she could, like, sneak into this like showing of like a cool new military plane that is 100% immune to any sort of EMP or electronic interference. I wonder why.
The Tiger helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
So she sneaks backstage, basically murks the pilots. She and her accomplice, who we don't know who he is yet, take their outfits, dress up as the pilots, board the Tiger, and then I guess they just leave.
They just leave.
Because it's a demonstration of the helicopter, so my understanding is that they fly it, and everybody's like, "Yay, it's so cool!" And then it just goes.
Yeah. This is like a fucking Hitman escape option.
It really is. Oh my god.
Excellent work. Excellent work on the top. they just leave. The plan went perfectly, but James Bond did see what happened. So, eventually, I think is this when he goes to... I'm just checking the film. Yes. We cut to, this Space Weapons Control Center in Severnaya, whatever, in Russia.
Severnaya, yeah. And we are meeting a wacky, disheveled hacker named Boris Grushenko, who has locked his coworker's computer with horny SimCity malware.
Yeah.
Listen, if there's one thing I know about the 1990s, every research facility or military facility had at least one wacky hacker who devoted a significant chunk of his time to creating a bespoke UI with which to mock his victims.
Yeah, it's in Jurassic Park. It's in this. I'm pretty sure it's in like Hackers or something. It's so goofy. He tells her to put in a password, and it is the hint is they're right in front of you, and you can use them to open big doors. So she has to type in knockers in English. Very convenient. So he also has he introduces like his catchphrase, which is if he's really good at like hacking something, he'll like shout, "I am invincible." I do wish, but yeah, this lady, her name is I can never
Natalia.
Yeah, Natalia. She's like she's gonna be like really important throughout the rest of this movie. And as they're like having their little games, this guy comes in, and Boris goes out for a smoke, and I believe, is it Uranov or
Omarov?
Omarov,
the same guy from the opening sequence.
Yeah, Uramov comes in, and he somehow sabotages it. He sabotages like the weapons this is like meant to operate to fire upon itself.
So specifically, what happens is this facility was used to control the Goldeneye satellite EMP system.
Yeah.
I think that's been decommissioned, and now it's being used for other purposes.
Right.
But Goldeneye is still present on site.
Yeah.
Or the controls for it. So he pulls rank because he's in control of this place. He's like, I need the access codes. We need to test fire Goldeneye. But then he sets it up to actually fire Goldeneye at the facility. And meanwhile, Onatop, who's also there, murders everybody and has a big cum about it.
Yeah, she sure does.
I don't know how I feel about Onatop. She just feels like I get the joke. It's just kind of, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it's
so
it's like,
no, go on.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where like in the right mindset, I think you can like think, wow, cool lady, but like the more you think about it, it's like, no, wait, this is just like baked in unfortunate stereotypes.
Yeah. So what happens is basically they kill everybody except for Natalia, who it looks like she's going to escape through a vent, but Onatop figures out that she went in there, and she fires at the ceiling. So Natalia is presumed dead. Onatop and Omarov are gone before anybody can arrive to investigate.
And of course, Boris also gets away. We'll see more of him later. Since he like stepped out for a smoke break, he wasn't in when it like fired. Let's see what happens next. I believe
now it's James Bond arriving at MI6 headquarters. And he has some banner with Moneypenny where she's like, this could constitute sexual harassment, but it's okay, fellas, because we all know ladies really want it, right? This is atrocious.
It's
I cannot. Again, like, half the point of Austin Powers International Man of Mystery was, like, making fun of this idea of, like, the super spy as womanizing asshole, but it's okay because the ladies like him. And I feel like seeing this in a movie made, 2 years later, just feels like, if y'all were gonna take any lesson from that movie, why was it the wacky comedy bits and not the part where it's like, hey, maybe rethink this character archetype?
Mm-hmm. It's rough. This is a weird pull, but it really reminds me of really shitty horny anime, I guess.
Oh, no, I can see what you mean. Just this sort of disconnect from any actual human, conversation.
Yeah. We want our cake, and we're gonna eat it too, so let's have it.
Yep. So now we get a bunch of exposition. MI6 intercepted the Severnaya facility's distress call, which one of the people at the facility sent out before they died. They talk about the Goldeneye device, which is a satellite with a nuke in it, basically, so that it can set off an EMP above any location on Earth.
Right.
They are talking about how they have been assuming that it does not actually exist because they think that the USSR at the time would not have had the financial or research capacity to devote to that.
But apparently they did.
Yeah.
As they're having this exposition, we find out Natalia's still in there. She's trying to figure out how to escape.
Yeah, she did this cool thing, honestly, which is she hid in a cabinet, but she fucked with the vent to make it look like she went through there.
Right.
When she comes out of hiding, it's just in time for Goldeneye to fire. The EMP blast hits the facility, and then I guess everything just starts exploding?
Yeah, this is a very liberal understanding of what an EMP does. Of course, if an electronic doesn't work anymore, it's going to explode. So that's what's happening here.
They talk about, fail on, fail off, fail explode. And 99% of the time, what engineers will do is go with fail explode, because it's fun. I don't know. It is fun. It's really fun, is the thing.
Yeah, I remember when my toaster broke and it just, blew into a million pieces. It was cool to watch, even if it was a mess to clean up.
Same thing happened with my rice cooker. It was like that scene in the 60s Batman movie. I was running around looking for a sewer to chuck it in.
Yeah. Sometimes you just can't get rid of a rice cooker. And also it takes out these planes that are flying over, trying to figure out what's going on. I think these are Russian planes, but I don't know.
Yeah, they are Russian MiGs.
Yeah. It takes out these planes that crash into the above ground front area. There's this really good bit where Natalia is it looks like this set of monitors is going to land on her, but they catch on a cable right before they hit her. The whole thing goes down in flames. She mourns her best friend who happened to get caught in this whole thing, and eventually she just has to she enough wreckage breaks down that she's able to climb outside. And I do love that the last shot before she's somewhere else is she finds this musher of sled dogs, or whatever the terminology is. So she did just get away on these, presumably. We did see the sled dogs earlier on, just going through the area. They should have shown that. In fact, I'm sad they didn't include the little escape sequence mini game where you ride them around.
Did they have that in Goldeneye?
I'm sure it was.
I mean, Listen, this is a pretty straight adaptation. I would be surprised if it wasn't in there. So back at MI6, their surveillance is a little fucked up because of the EMP, but eventually they manage to reestablish it with a new satellite. The damage is congruent with what they would expect from Goldeneye, so Goldeneye real. Bond posits that an insider must have been involved, or else the attackers wouldn't have gotten the access codes. And then he notices movement on the feed, which is Natalia.
Yeah.
M and Bond convene to discuss who the Syndicate's inside man might be. M talks about how it could be Orumov, but political analysts have ruled him out because he doesn't fit the profile of a traitor. And then they get in this weird argument where it's like, I think you're uptight and overly rational. I think you're a sexist relic of the Cold War, which you objectively are. I'm sending you out anyway, but don't go after Orumov just to get revenge, which never actually comes up, now that I think about it.
No, like, revenge comes up, for sure. I would say it's like a key motivator of this entire film. But, but no,
Orumov's never really the target of it. He's just an antagonist.
So he leaves for St. Petersburg, and he meets a CIA contact.
No.
Oh, well, I forgot the scene before. So there is, we get Selensk, I think his name is, Selensk is something else. Urumov, meets up with, this, board of, ministry officials to, I'm not sure if he's covering his ass or just trying to get more intel.
I believe this is a cover-up.
Yeah.
He's talking about this attack with Siberian separatists. He offers to resign. I read this as he knows they're not going to actually make him do it. He just wants to look good.
Yeah.
They ask for assurance that there are no other GoldenEye satellites. He says yes. And then they ask about the 2 missing Severnaya technicians. And Orumov is thrown off by that because he thought Natalia was dead. He thought Boris was the only one who may have survived.
Yeah.
There's some antagonism seated here between Orumov and the defense minister, which will come up later. But then before Bond meets up with his contact, he's got to go get his gadgets.
Yeah,
it's Q. Q is the explanation for where he gets all these gadgets in the game.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what is? I was paying close attention. So this sequence, they explain the belt that's also like a grappling hook. They explain the X-ray document scanner, which I don't think actually comes up.
No. I think
they explain the grenade pen. That one's important.
Yeah.
I don't think they actually explain the watch laser.
No,
So later on, Bond just on train. He just has a laser in his watch.
Yeah, I don't know much about James Bond as a character, but I think the idea is the watch laser is something he's always got. I'm not sure.
I guess that could be it. It's his signature gadget, how on Totally Spies they had those little compacts that are also communication devices and shit.
Yeah. There's also some there's a lot of background gags. There's a guy who accidentally sets off this phone booth trap that's an airbag, and he has to be escorted out while in the phone booth. There's a part where where James Bond just grabs a sandwich and and Q says, "Don't touch that! That's my lunch." It's a good bit. There is a lot of oh right, a guy fucking gets launched out of an ejector seat. That's great. So James Bond lands in St. Petersburg, where he meets a CIA contact, Jack Wade.
Jack Wade.
Jack Wade. And kind of the gag is just, I feel kind of the gag with him is just the CIA's up to way more shit than MI6 is.
That's half the gag, and the other is he's not this suave spy archetype. He's
Yeah.
just a guy. He's just doing his job.
They have to go to like this this very tiny car. I love this tiny car that he has to like do repairs on to get to work. He's like expositing about how like there's this leader of the syndicate. He supposedly has like this train that's like always moving that used to be like Soviet stuff. There's like a bit where James Bond's like holding him up to like give him more information. There's a bit where he's like doing repairs on the car, and like in order to get it to work, he has James Bond give him a sledgehammer so he can just fucking whack the thing. Like first he uses it to like just, you know, hammer on a little
gently tap a little chisel, yeah.
and then he just does a full on engineer TF2 like percussive maintenance on it. It's great. He's also got a tattoo that says Muffy that is like, it's like Muffy over a rose, and he says that's his third wife. I love that.
My favorite part of this whole sequence is when they're talking about Zukovsky, who's this ex-KGB agent. Mm-hmm. Now he's got a syndicate to rival the Janus syndicate. And they talk about... Wade's talking about, like, he has a limp, and then Bond is like, oh yeah, I know him, I gave him the limp.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get that all lined up, and then we cut over to Natalia, who has made her way back to civilization. Mm-hmm. Hang on, I'm going to sneeze.
Yep.
Once more.
Mm-hmm.
Natalia, who has made her way back to civilization. This is a fun bit. She goes to a local IBM office and says that she wants to order like 35 computers for some foreign schools, but this is actually just a pretense to use a demonstration model. She contacts Boris, and they arrange a meeting at a church in Smolensk. He's like, listen, trust no one. Honestly, the big thing with this scene is I used to work on like refurbishing computers that had this same sort of case, and seeing the back panel is very nostalgic for me.
Yeah, it's some real good old computer stuff. In high school, I had like this computer program I like studied, and like I got to like handle like stuff like this. It was great.
So Natalia goes to the church, but it's spooky, and she runs away because I guess this Russian woman has never seen an Eastern Orthodox church before. She runs smack into Boris, and then the scene's just over.
Yeah,
and it's a little weird.
Yeah, I feel like maybe they like cut out like a bit where they like exchange words, or maybe like set up more tension or something. But
so I think at this point we can say Boris was actually the inside man, not Ourumov.
Yeah.
He's working with the baddies, and it feels like that should become apparent here. Like she lets her guard down, and then he's like, "No, actually, didn't I say trust no one?" and has her at gunpoint or something. I don't know. That'll all become apparent later. For now, it's the end of the scene. Bond is going after Zukovsky. This whole sequence is a blast. It starts with him like holding Zukovsky at gunpoint, and then he's like, "Oh shit, I recognize that sound. That's a Walther PPK. I only know 3 people who use that gun, and I've killed 2 of them." And then another guy gets Bond at gunpoint.
It's good shit. It just like coming in like the way it's like framed is so that you can't like see him sneaking up. You just suddenly see the gun there.
The framing in this movie is fantastic in general.
Yeah, there's like some Russian women dressed up as like cowboys singing "Stand by Your Man." James Bond does not like this.
This is all very metaphorical. It's the westernization values being imposed on post-Soviet Russia, yada yada. Anyway, it's this long sort of comedy sequence, which then gives way to Zukovsky and Bond having a serious discussion in Zukovsky's office, and he explains the enigmatic head of the Janus Syndicate is a Lienz Cossack. Which I looked up, does appear to be a real thing. they were a group of anti-communist partisans that worked with the Nazis. And when World War II ended, they sought refuge with the British. And the British were like, we're still nominally allies with the Soviets, and we don't like the Nazis. Mm-hmm. So instead of Operation Paperclipping you, we're just gonna like send you back because you don't really have any strategic value to us. Mm-hmm. And then they all got shot.
Yeah. Wild shit.
Which during the scene I was a little confused, like how if it was like a metaphorical thing, like how could he be Ilyan's Cossack if they're all dead, and also that was in the 40s. But it becomes apparent later. It makes more sense once we learn more about Janos.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, I believe. Let me see. Right. So they have to like set him up with a meeting with Janos, and they do it at the Grand Hotel Europe. So we get James Bond chilling in the pool, and as he's like relaxing, there's someone sneaking around, and it's of course Anna Top, and James Bond has to fight her.
Or maybe fuck her
and fuck her.
Listen. I understand the erotic appeal of violence, but like this is just a weird sequence.
Yeah, there's like a bit where they're in like a sauna and she like accidentally sits on like some like burning hot coals or something, or a hot plate. But eventually,
this was definitely not in the video game. By the way,
yeah.
Like I don't have the most comprehensive knowledge of Goldeneye. I think I can say pretty conclusively. You know, Rare got away with a lot for Conker's Bad Fur Day, but I don't think they would have managed to get this sort of sex fight on the Nintendo 64.
Yeah, it would have been very hard to render, and like, I mean, it is like a Nintendo console, of course. Now that that does remind me though, something I have been thinking about, which is, this is also around the time of, like, Metal Gear Solid, and, like, just the parallels between that and this, and also, there's this, like, general sneaking theme that I think is in, like, both the game and the movie, that really sounds like one of the sneaking things in MGS1. And it's just, it's funny to think about how, like, how the stealth genre really, like, developed at this point in time in history.
It's funny you make that comparison, by the way, because Boris is very much sort of the same character archetype as Otacon.
Yeah.
But, like, he reads almost as, like... I hate to get all TV tropes with it. He reads almost as like a deconstruction of that idea.
Yeah,
because,
like a reversal.
He's like a weird nerd, but he's funny. But actually, no, he actually sucks. Like,
yeah.
the weird nerd shit is a layer on top of the fact that he's actually like an awful person. There's not hidden depths here. He just sucks.
Yeah, yeah. I have another thing I think about specifically that, but we'll get to it later. Actually, pretty close to later, because after like James Bond is able to like hold her at gunpoint and escape, he has to like go to this. I would describe this as a Soviet graveyard. It's just like this junkyard that's full of just half demolished. Like Soviet statues and stuff, like statues of Lenin and Stalin and stuff.
Again, not a very subtle movie.
And of course, as he meets like this visual metaphor for the end of the Soviet Union, he meets Janos, who, as it turns out, is 006.
I really love the scene where he's like coming out of this shadowy doorway. The lighting is incredible.
Yeah.
Like, he's in complete darkness until suddenly he isn't anymore. And even knowing that, Janos is Alec, obviously. Even knowing that ahead of time, this was still a delight.
Yeah.
So Trevelyan sort of clarifies and explains his backstory. His family escaped execution for being collaborator scum, but his father ended up being, due to like shame and despair, he committed murder-suicide, so now he's an orphan. Mm-hmm. And I guess MI6, or like Britain in general, was just like, oh, that kid was, 5 years old? He won't remember any of that. Let him be a spy. Let him be, like, the 6th highest ranked spy in the country.
Yeah, just put him in with 007, who is also an orphan. His parents died in a climbing accident. I just find that an interesting detail. And
he does a lot of climbing in this, and it doesn't go bad for him.
Yeah. He has surpassed his parents.
There's this weird angle that develops now as well, where, like, Trevelyan is really mad that Bond shortened the timers on the explosives.
Yeah.
Which seems petty to me, because, one, you lived, and two, he seems mad that he got a scar, but it's, like, kind of a handsome scar, and depending on the lighting, sometimes barely visible, so it just seems like he's being kind of a little bitch.
Yeah, listen, the level was really hard for him. He had to restart a whole bunch of times.
I never thought about what an escort mission was like from the other person's perspective. Oh, they shot me again. Oh, well.
So, they sort of, oh, right, here's the other thing I wanted to bring up, which is just this whole, like, this, like, former, like, ally turned enemy, sort of, it really reminds me of, like, a couple different, it reminds me of both Gray Fox and Liquid Snake. Like, especially, there's, like, a very Liquid Snake feel to this guy, I think.
Hang on a second, I need to look up the...
Metal
Gear Solid came out in 1998.
Yeah. Interesting coincidence.
I mean, it might not be a coincidence. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know what the production schedule on a movie looks like, honestly.
Right,
so,
right.
Maybe this was all already set in stone by then, but it is funny to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? I guess all this was already in GoldenEye 1997, so, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. It probably is just coincidence.
Yeah. So, they're about to fight, but James Bond gets, like, shot and taken out, but it was actually, like, a sleeping dart. And the next thing, like, right after that is he wakes up to Natalia screaming at him as they're both, like, strapped into a into the helicopter, and they need to, like, escape before, like, the trap sets off, which is in, like, 30 seconds it's about to launch some missiles at them, or it's about to launch out missiles and redirect it at itself.
I think the idea is that the missiles are going to be launched at the ground, and then Bond starts headbutting the controls because his wrists are bound, and manages to get enough lift that the missiles fire into the sky. But then, like you said, they're heat-seeking, they turn back around. And then he just starts headbutting the helicopter's eject button, which is eventually successful. The rotor blades fly off every which way, and then the cockpit launches into the air.
Yeah.
This whole thing's very goofy. I'm like 90% sure it's not in the source material. I think they just needed to come up with an explanation for how we get from point A, which is this Soviet graveyard, to point B, which is a prison/archive building?
Yeah, I feel like this is more like... I'm not sure if this is specifically a prison or just, like, a government building that, like, that they happen to have, like, a more clandestine jail cell in.
That probably makes sense, honestly.
Yeah.
What happens is they manage not to explode. Natalia immediately starts trying to run for some reason I'm not clear on. Bond grabs her, they struggle, then some soldiers pull up, hold them at gunpoint, bring them to this prison cell. Bond is trying to convince Natalia they're on the same side, and there's a really cool moment here, actually. She is claiming she has nothing to do with any of this, but he's like, I can tell you were at the site of the Goldeneye blast because you're wearing a digital watch that's not working.
Yeah.
And I really like that. I think it makes him feel more like a spy than just, like, going around and shooting people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's using his brain a little bit. And I wish he used it a little more, but when that does happen in this movie, it's fun.
Yeah. So, as they're, like, arguing, eventually the, like, Minister of Defense comes in, and, like, is going to, like, interrogate Bond, but, like, Bond is, like, being a suave asshole and not cooperating, but instead of, like, getting shot for it, Natalia breaks it up and calls them, like, boys with toys.
She explains, the insider must have been Boris Grushenko. Nobody else could have done it. Which is a weird way to frame it, because Ourumov pulled rank. Like, he could have done that without Boris. But whatever. And Natalia explains, Ourumov was there. He was working with Boris Grushenko. He set off Goldeneye, and there is a second Goldeneye satellite.
Yeah, there's a second one.
And then Ourumov himself storms in. This man looks so fucking sweaty. He's having a miserable time.
Yeah, he is... I think he had to do his own sneaking mission, except it was, like... He had to do, like, social stealth and, like, try not... Just the worst meaning of his life. He like, breaks him out. He kills the Minister of Defense, and... in the ensuing struggle, James Bond and Natalia escape, and they do the prison escape level. It's great. I love seeing, like, James Bond going around with an assault rifle is really funny to me. Like, I don't know, maybe he uses more weapons and other stuff, but, like, an assault rifle just feels more, like, action specific in a way that James Bond doesn't feel. And I love that.
Like these are novels and these are video games about, like, being more stealthy and puzzly about it, and like it's like Agent 47, right?
Yeah.
Like you use the handgun if you use anything. It does feel a little silly sometimes.
He does like a fucking like FPS shoot and slide, and eventually they get into like an archives room. And they have to do this thing where they push over, like, all these bookshelves so they can seal off the upstairs entrance.
It's pretty fun, honestly.
Yeah.
Despite that, Natalia gets captured. Bond swings across a gap using his rappel belt and, like, launches himself through a window to a courtyard full of tanks. Why is there a courtyard full of tanks there? Because the next level has a tank in it.
Yeah, I will say... The tank sequence in this movie, I think, is maybe my favorite scene in the whole thing.
It's really fun. Like, getting there is contrived, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, he Urmov and is like driving carefully. He's got to like go through all this get through like narrow tunnels, make it like dodge through traffic. And all the while, he's, like, holding a gun to Natalia, while James Bond is just barreling through.
Fuck you, I'm James Bond!
He's dumb as fuck and nothing can stop him.
Boom, boom, I'm crushing walls! I'm wearing an equestrian statue for a hat! I'm James Bond! I do think it goes on a bit long, and, like, there are a few too many shots of Ourumov just, like, frantically swigging vodka from his flask, but it's enjoyable.
Yeah,
and they do some fun spots with it.
Yeah, I love.
And then, no, go ahead.
I love just James Bond occasionally like peeking his head out of the tank to like get
get a better view.
It's very silly.
Oh my god! So Ourumov manages to stay ahead of Bond long enough to bring her aboard Janus's decommissioned Soviet train base. Bond sees where he's going, and I guess somehow he maneuvers the tank into the train's path. I don't know how it works out geographically, Also, Trevelyan is being a weird pervert, even by this movie's standards.
There's this great part where the train is going and it's going up against the tank. The tank like fires at it. All that does is set it on fire.
It erupts in flames, and it's so cool.
Mm-hmm. And eventually, it just plows right through the tank. But James Bond already got out. It's great shit.
So yeah, Bond manages to board the train. He has Trevelyan and Onatopp at gunpoint, but Ourumov has Natalia at gunpoint. And then this part is weird. Mm-hmm. So Bond tries to win Ourumov over by talking about how, like, listen, Trevelyan is... His parents were Leon's Cossacks. He sold me out. He's a traitor. He's gonna betray you. You can't trust him. And then he just shoots Ourumov anyway. Because I guess he's worried that Ourumov will still kill the girl.
Yeah.
But mostly this just gives Trevelyan and Onatopp time to retreat to another car.
Yeah.
I don't know why this is in here. It's really weird considering it doesn't go anywhere at all.
Yeah, he failed his speech check.
Like Ourumov doesn't even like respond to him. He just kind of stares like worried at Trevelyan, if I recall correctly, and Trevelyan's like, "Come on, you're gonna listen to this asshole?"
Yeah.
I think they had to truncate this sequence a lot from Train in the game, which I remember being more involved. The important thing is Natalia and Bond are sealed in one train car after Trevelyan and Onatopp escape to the other one. There's bombs set to explode, because I guess this was all Trevelyan's design, obviously. And there's a line about I'm going to give you have 6 minutes to escape, the same 6 minutes you gave me. And Bond is like, well, you have 3 minutes. And it's like, I get it, but like, he thought you were gonna die. He thought you were already dead, you know? So like, whatever, man.
Yeah. Like Natalia is like, while like James Bond is like trying to figure out a way to get out, she's like hacking into like the workstation nearby to like get info on like where they're headed, and
she's tracing where Boris is communicating with, essentially.
I guess like at that same time, Boris is on there, like, and he's setting up like a counter, like some like countermeasures to like have her go through, and she has to like guess a password. And the hint is, you sit on it, but you can't take it with you. And I love this screen of her, like, trying to put in passwords going with his, like, uncomfortably horny theme. And she types in butt, rejected, arse, rejected, buns, rejected, rear, rejected. It's an incredible image. And James Bond says, oh, it's chair. And that works. It's
and then Boris starts freaking out, and he's just ripping wires out of his system so she can't maintain the uplink, which is fun. Meanwhile, Bond is using the laser watch that I guess he has, because I guess it's just his thing, to cut open a hole in the floor of the train. Natalia managed to pinpoint Boris to somewhere in southeastern Cuba, but between him disconnecting everything and Bond being like, hey, this place is about to explode, we need to go, she can't quite pinpoint it.
Right.
So they get off the train, it explodes, they have some real mediocre banter, and then they start making out, I guess.
Yeah.
The romance in this movie is entirely perfunctory.
Yeah.
It's James Bond. James Bond has to fuck.
He has to, or he'll die. So they go to they go to Cuba. They're like driving around in this sports car, and they run into who else but Jack Wayne, who like gives them a plane, which he was flying earlier. They like swap vehicles.
And he also gives them, like, a shopping bag full of, I guess, remote detonated mines, based on what happens after this?
Yeah. I'm looking at the scene, and, like, you can see a little bit of one, like, as he's, like, going through it. I do love his fucking, beachwear that, like...
Yeah.
It's an aesthetic, despite him being a Fed, I will say it is an aesthetic I aspire to.
I love, bright, loud print shirts. Mm. They're great.
Yeah.
So their problem is essentially... They know that the Goldeneye control facility will be centered on a massive satellite dish like Severnaya had. But Wade says, we don't think there is one. Our surveillance would have picked it up. Mm-hmm. So they just gotta do their best to look for it. They take the plane. But hey, before we look for the control base to this incredibly dangerous super weapon... It's getting a little bit late, and we didn't have a chance to sleep on the plane to the Caribbean. How about we sit by the ocean? James Bond's sad now; he's gonna brood for a bit, and then we're gonna go we're gonna have a conversation about how Natalia's like, dying is bad. I don't know how you're so cold, and he's like, well, it's a coping mechanism. And she's like, it's a shit one, and then they make out some more, and then they have sex off screen. His whole romance is nothing.
It's garbage, yeah. So eventually, after they fuck, they have to like go out on this plane and like look around for wherever this base could be. And eventually they get like shot at by a missile from an unseen source, and they crash down into like. Into the jungle, yeah. And it's time for one last boss fight with Onatop. I gotta say, the way she goes is rough.
Yeah. So what happens is basically she's trying to sex kill James Bond with her sternum crush thing. Natalia tries to hit her, which mostly just distracts her long enough for Bond to shoot at the helicopter she rappelled down from. She's attached to it by the waist, I guess?
Yeah.
And the erratic movements of the helicopter launch her into a tree, and she's crushed against the tree.
Yeah. And he's like... He gives the shitty fucking one-liner. I hate it. It's like...
He's like, oh, she did always enjoy a good squeeze. And it's like... You can do better, man.
Yeah. Come on. So, after her ironic death, they sneak into, like, the dish. Because it turns...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, go on.
As it turns out, the reason they can't find the dish, through normal scanning, is because it's underwater most of the time. And it's coming up now to launch an EMP at London.
Basically, like, this whole lake that they were flying over earlier, it is the dish. It's just built into this crevice between a bunch of mountains. And the antenna's coming up, the lake's draining away. Bond and Natalia go into the depths of the facility after being shot at by Trevelyan's men, and they, like, slide down. Whee! They're sliding down! It's so funny!
It's very whimsical.
The camera is, like, whipping around every which way. Really weird shot.
Yeah. So...
Go ahead.
Yeah, so, like, at this point, we see, like, Boris is in fact working directly with 006, and they get in, they set up the bombs, and they get caught, and
Bond gets caught, like, right away.
Yeah.
And he's brought to Trevelyan and Boris. While that's happening, Natalia she's gotten to a computer and she's fucking around on it.
Yeah, I do like this bit for her where she has to, like, find a way to surpass, like, her coworker who is supposed to be a better hacker than her. I like that for her. They have to. She sets up, like, these, like, passwords that he has to guess, and he's really having trouble with it. And
yeah, she's got this encryption going.
Yeah.
This is also where Trevelyan explains his plan.
Yeah.
So this is maybe the stupidest part of the movie for me. So how this works is Boris is going to force a transfer away from the Bank of England to his and Trevelyan's personal accounts. Right after that, Goldeneye is going to be fired, which will erase any record of the transaction. So, how exactly is an electronic transfer going to work if there's no record of the transaction? And also, why wouldn't there be a record of the transaction on the other end?
Yeah, I don't get it. I guess it just works, I guess.
It just works. But also, this is as much to get revenge on the British state as anything else.
Yeah,
Trevelyan's really sad that his Nazi dad killed himself. And that's the British's fault?
Apparently.
Listen, England has done a lot of bad things, but I gotta give them a pass on this one.
Yeah, and also, like, his plan is, like, he does mention, like, how all of these, like, systems are gonna fail, all the electronics are gonna break, it's gonna destroy, like, the stock market, it's presumably going to, like, it's going to be a nightmare on pretty much anyone who's in a hospital in the UK. It's a lot. It's yeah. Anyways. So, what ultimately happens is, Boris cannot guess the passwords that Natalia set up, and at some point he got a hold of James Bond's pen. They like strip him of his like accoutrement.
And Boris doesn't realize this is an exploding pen, so he's just like angry stimming on it, flicking it in back and forth. I really like this bit, honestly, because it's this really mundane action of idly clicking the button on a pen again and again, and you can tell that Bond is like trying to keep count in his head to figure out if it's armed or not at any given time, and it contrasts with the very big and wild events that are otherwise going on. I think it's really fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a good bit of tension, and eventually he's able to figure out when it's armed, and he like knocks it away into, I don't know, I guess a structural weak point or something.
I think it's like an oil storage tank or something, because it explodes real big from the little pen.
Yeah.
The whole fucking facility goes to hell, basically.
Yeah.
So Bond and Natalia escape in the confusion. Natalia is like, Boris still might be able to break the code if he survived. So James Bond figures we should destroy the transmitter to be safe. They take an elevator to the top of the facility. They jump a soldier. Natalia finally gets a gun, which has been a really weird thing not to be in this until now, because from what I remember of Goldeneye, she has a gun for like every stage of that game that she's in.
Right.
She never fires it either. She just uses it to hold a guy at gunpoint.
Yeah.
So yeah, they split up. Bond is going on this like big old suspended bridge. Trevelyan is giving chase by cable car. They start shooting at each other, but neither can like get a good one off.
Boris is like being held at gunpoint to like sort of control the situation with his hacking abilities, but unfortunately for him, James Bond grabs a pipe and shoves it into some sort of conveyor belt, thus causing a malfunction. And
I really like this. Like, I wasn't even thinking about this earlier, but it's fun having the contrast of this very elaborate system that we've mostly been focused on the computerized angle of, but now we're seeing the mechanical parts, and it's like, oh yeah, no, a mechanical point of failure can cause cascading issues through the whole thing, obviously. So yeah, he sabotages the antenna. Then he has a pretty fun fight scene with Trevelyan. Most of it, while they're indoors, is pretty dark, but it's still readable. I think few too many cuts. I'm always complaining about how many cuts there are in these movies, but the action is still generally clear, and I think there's a good tempo to the whole thing. And there's this really fun moment where Trevelyan is about to shoot him, but Bond causes a ladder to descend, and he just rides it down.
Yeah. They eventually he is able to knock him over onto the ground, and right before he does it, he's like, "So, is it for Mother England or whatever the fuck?"
It's for England, James. But this is this whole catchphrase they've had through the whole movie, so it's like, oh, they're resolving that recurring bit. For England, James, and James is like, "No, for me."
Yeah, and he fucking kicks him down. And
then we get Looney Tunes shit.
Uh-huh.
So, Trevelyan falls all this way, and he's like, "Ah!" And it starts with an obvious green screen. Then we see, Boris is too late to get the satellite back on track. It's burning up in the atmosphere, because that's where Natalia sent it. And we just get this shot of him screaming into the camera.
I love, there's shots of him looking direct, where it's he's staring at the monitor angrily and shouting at it. It's great.
So then Trevelyan, somehow he fell 150 feet onto concrete, but he's still alive, just long enough to be crushed under the antenna as it falls apart. Bond by this point has been rescued by Natalia, who had a helicopter pilot at gunpoint. And Boris, he's nearly killed. He isn't. He has this whole, "I am invincible!" And then there's some liquid nitrogen canisters there.
Yeah, they just...
And they explode, and he gets flash frozen.
It's an incredible end to this guy. Catchphrase, death, statue of who you once were. And it is a very silly looking flash freezing. He's got he's got icicles sticking off of him. He looks very silly in this pose.
Straight up, like I said, Looney Tunes shit. He's a living cartoon.
And so James Bond and Natalia are able to escape, and I guess the helicopter pilot doesn't care anymore and flies off.
Hey, I didn't think about that, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck it. There's nothing in it for me, right? So,
Yeah.
Hey, I already got paid. If you let me live, there's no problem with me. Wade is here with some Marines in ghillie suits who did nothing to help. But they'll escort them back to, safe haven. He has a line about debriefing each other at Guantanamo. Didn't age good.
Yeah, that is the last lines in the movie are, maybe you two'd like to finish debriefing each other at Guantanamo. James Bond says, "What could possibly go wrong?" And they fly away, presumably to have sex in the torture prison.
Hell yeah! I mean, listen, the whole area is Guantanamo.
Yeah.
So, they're just going to have sex near the torture prison.
Yeah.
What a strange movie.
But
a pretty fun one.
And yeah, that's the end of the movie. We get credits. So, how would you rank this film?
I mean, as an adaptation, 5 out of 5.
Obviously,
like I said,
yes.
pretty much beat for beat the N64 game, including Bond just having a laser watch on the train and it never really being explained. In terms of as a movie, I'd probably say a 3 or 4 out of 5. Not the best, but it's fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I'd give it 3 out of 5 as a movie. It's a fun watch. I could hypothetically see myself. Wait, hang on. I'm looking at the credits because I just have this movie on. Robbie Coltrane is in this?
Wait, what?
Hang on. Let me see this real quick. Who does he play?
He plays the XKGB guy.
Yeah, great. A Gooby for the ages. Anyways. Yeah, Robbie, so, 5 out of 5 adaptation, 3 out of 5 movie. I could see myself, just hanging out with some friends and just watching this for, like, an hour to pass time. Good movie. Fine movie. Okay movie. Enjoyable movie.
It is, like I said earlier, it is what I would call a romp.
Yeah. With that all said and done, we didn't really send out for questions, but mostly because I wanted this to be a surprise. Is there something you want to watch next month? I've been thinking about it. I don't think we can do it next month. Maybe May, just because of like how easy or hard it would be to get a hold of it. But I do want to either in April or May, probably May, do the new Mario movie. I feel like we've watched a Mario movie every year.
Coming out, huh?
Mm-hmm. But do you have anything in mind for April?
Hang on, I gotta find the release date on that.
I think it is just like I watched the final trailer recently for their, and they did just say April. I don't know. Mario movie release date.
They're making a Toe Jam and Earl movie? What the fuck?
What the fuck? That is
that could actually be pretty fun.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So it looks like April 5th. I'm not sure how quickly it's going to show up on streaming services. So I'm going to say let's put that for May. Let's see. Do you have anything in mind?
I'm seeing on Wikipedia. It looks like in theaters April 5th.
Yeah.
Let me see. We could do the Angry Bird movie.
Oh, I want to watch the Angry Bird movie. I want to see how bad that is. I've heard things about it. I've seen clips. I need to know. Let's do it.
Let me think about what else should be on our short list. At some point, we're going to need to watch Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li.
Oh, absolutely.
We haven't seen any of the Lara Croft Tomb Raider movies.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm not going to want to watch one of those so soon after this. I feel like it'll be too tonally similar.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah?
They made a Dead or Alive movie?
Oh my god, yes, I've heard about this movie. Yeah, maybe Dead or Alive. There's some...
They made a Wing Commander movie?
What? Hang on.
How did... I, completely forgot half of these existed. Wow.
Yeah, I only know about the Dead or Alive movie because there's a bit in the 6 Feet Under actual play of Monster Hearts where they set it in 2007, and they're, looking up movies that the characters could have watched at the time, and one of them was the Dead or Alive movie. 1999, huh? Interesting.
Same year.
Yeah.
Truly a great year for video game movies.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, yeah, what was the one? Yeah, the Angry Birds movie. Yeah. I think I want to commit to that.
All right. Yeah, let's do it. All right. I think that wraps it up. So, let's do some plugs. I'm Dan. You can find me. You can find all the places I'm at biggerchallenge.card.co. Includes my other podcasts, Pot of Greed, Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast. We're watching Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. It rules. We just recorded an episode earlier today. That was a lot of fun. You can listen to The Sonic Shuffle, a Sonic podcast. I've been a little slow on the editing, but one thing you should definitely look forward to is we are going to do... We did... to celebrate our 3-year, I think it's, celebrate our anniversary. We watched, or we did an actual play of Shadow the Hedgehog Lasers and Feelings hack called speeding bullets. That was a lot of fun.
That sounds like a blast.
Yeah, my favorite thing about that game is you like have to select your backstory based on randomly generating one of like the 326 routes from Shadow the Hedgehog. It's a good gimmick, I think. Yeah. That's and of course there's Twitter, Tumblr, co-host at Xbox_holiday, where Usher celebrates holidays with Xbox. Since this is going up in April, I'll say Happy Easter, Xbox.
Happy Easter, Xbox.
And my Fur Affinity. I upload stuff I commission onto there. Alright, that's enough out of me. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Tumblr and co-host at Max Knightley. That's MAXKNIGHTLEY. I will say, I post a lot more on Tumblr. Mm-hmm. And I'm also on the podcast Eidolon Playtest. That is an actual play podcast, drawing a lot of inspiration from Persona and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Currently we're doing Eidolon Disco and Eidolon Ska, which are both period pieces about mystery-solving teens who get incredible magical powers, and are definitely goes really good for them. Mm-hmm. They don't have to deal with anything bad because of that.
I'm happy for them. And we are on Twitter and co-host at VGTMTP. I cannot remember if I ever set up a Tumblr, and we are also on Noisepace.xyz. Podcasting network run by Matt GameCube, noted Canadian, with a lot of good shows on it, including ones we've already listed off. There's Dr. Ha, a Doctor Who rewatch podcast gone in random order. They recently had Ironicus on as a guest to talk about the very first episode of the revival of Doctor Who, Rose. There's 0 to 0, an incredible superhero movie podcast. There's Sounds About Light about Kingdom Hearts. Digimon Ghost Games about the current Digimon series. And lots of others. So go ahead and check it out. That should be everything. So until next time, I'm Dan.
I'm Maxie.
And this ain't no game.